Hi, it's Anthony Iannarino, and today I got a message from Ben, and Ben asked me to talk about what's in my library and what's on my reading list for 2017. It's January 2nd, and I will go ahead and give you just a quick view of the library. I put a wide-angle lens on here so I can show you a little bit more of it, and I'll tell you what's going on. So over on these shelves at the top is all American history, particularly the Revolutionary War, which is just one of my favorite areas to study and to read about, because it was such an interesting time and the idea of freedom appeals to me at the very highest level. It's one of the values that I hold dearest. So that's what that section is. Beneath that is a lot of military history. And I like military history because there's so much on the line that your strategic thinking and your tactics and your mindset and your commitment is different than any other endeavor that human beings engage in. And even though the outcome of warfare is horrible and it's terrible, it does tell us something about human psychology and about the human condition more generally. This section behind me here at the top is American history, particularly biographies, and then some international biographies. And then the rest of the way down, it's mostly science. And I like both of those areas. Biography will teach you things about other people, and science will teach you to understand your world, and that's an important thing to do no matter what you do. And sales is something that you should know and understand something about your world if you want to be good at it. This third shelf is all business books, and a lot of the books down here are still business books too. Tons and tons of business books, particularly things by Tom Peters and Stephen Covey, things that have been instrumental in my thinking and the development of how I think about business and sales, all on that particular shelf. And then the last shelf of Leatherbound books are predominantly from the Easton Press, and I've got the collected works of Shakespeare, 100 of the classics of literature, everything by Henry Kissinger, a number of books by Patton and other people like that. That's all on this shelf in leather. And I bought those thinking that I would someday give my kids a library, not knowing that they're not going to have a library and they're not going to want books. They're going to have everything on a Kindle. And so I have as many books on this Kindle as I do on the shelves behind me, which is unfortunate because the Kindle is the gateway drug for bibliophiles to buy many more books than they could ever possibly read. But Ben also wants to know what's on my reading list for 2017. And to talk about that, I have to talk about how I read books now because it's changed. I used to read a book a week, and I read a book a week even when I was in law school and I had much more reading to do. But I found out that's not the best way for me to consume books anymore, because what I'm really trying to do is get something useful out of the book, and I can't get that out when I read at that pace. So I'm slowing down. I'm reading a hardcover book. If I can, I'm listening to it on audio slightly behind my reading, and then I'm rereading the book. So first on my list for 2017 is Sex, Psychology, Spirituality. This will be my second reading of the book, and it's not quite as intimidating as it looks, because it ends at page 550. The rest are notes, and the book is The Spirit of Evolution by Ken Wilber. He's a philosopher and just one of the brightest people I've ever met, and this book is instrumental in thinking about the world that you live in, and particularly human evolution and how human culture evolves. And to me, it's a fascinating work. So that's number one on the list, second read through that. Anti-Fragile by Nicholas Nassim Taleb. This is a book, it says Things That Gain from Disorder. So this will be my third reading of this book. And I bought it in softcover so I can highlight it and I can take notes in the margin. And that's important to me to be able to do that. This is a book that was given to me by my friend Lahat in paperback, and I don't have that in the house right now. So I have this hardcover that someone else gave me of Sapiens, very popular book, New York Times bestseller, Another Way to Understand Your World. And then we get into The Untethered Soul, which was recommended by Anthony Robbins, The Journey Beyond Yourself. That looks interesting. The Storm of Creativity. And then finally, Thomas Friedman on Thank You for Being Late, which talks about the acceleration of the disruptive time that we live in. And I think that's an important thing for us to understand. And Friedman does it as well as anybody. So how I read books now, I'm going to read these books really slowly, probably 20 pages a day. So it'll take me something close to a month to get through Ken Wilber's book. But that's highlighting it, taking notes, deciding what I can apply to my work, what I can apply to my life to make my life better and more fulfilled. And then I'll move on to Anti-Fragile, 426 pages, I think. So you're looking at 22 or 23 days to get through that book. So maybe I'll get through 20 books this year total, but I'm going to take a deeper dive into each of those books and stop running through the book without really getting anything out of it. And that's a pretty good metaphor for the second day of January. If you're going to do something, really get something out of that effort and the time that you put into it. And I still think that reading is critically important, even though people don't read long form anymore, because not knowing how to read and knowing how and not reading give you the exact same result. You get no greater knowledge and no greater understanding. And for 25 or 26 bucks in 6 or 8 hours of your time, there's no better ROI. I'm Anthony Iannarino. Thanks for being here. That's my library. That's on my reading list. Tell me what you're reading in the comments, and I'll see you next time.